Welcome to the AnzenGuard podcast, everyone. I'm Michael Reynolds, and with me today is Laura Wilson. Ready to do another deep dive?
Always. Let's go.
We got a really interesting question today. Someone wants to know if a VPN can actually speed up their internet. I've always heard that they slow things down.
Yeah, that's definitely the common perception. But it might not be as simple as that. The internet's pretty complicated. There actually are a few situations where a VPN could give you a speed boost.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So I guess to even understand if that's possible, we need to talk about what internet speed even means.
Yeah, definitely.
We hear all the time about things like ping, download speeds, upload speeds.
Right.
What are those numbers really telling us?
Well, imagine the internet like a giant network of roads. And your data is like a car traveling on those roads. It's trying to get to its destination, maybe a website, a video stream, whatever you're trying to access. Download speed is like the width of the highway.
Yeah.
The more lanes you got, the more data can flow freely at once. Upload speed's the same idea.
Yeah.
But it's for data going from your device to the internet.
So bigger is better, right?
Yeah.
Wider roads, faster travel time.
Exactly. But then there's ping. Think of that like the reaction time.
Of your internet connection.
Exactly. Like how quickly your car can respond to a green light.
Okay.
So a lower ping means less delay. Super important for things like online gaming.
Right, where you need those split-second reactions.
Exactly.
I gotta say, though, the speeds I get at home don't always match what my ISP advertises. It's
Right.
like they're promising me this 6-lane highway, and then I end up stuck on some bumpy back road.
I think that's a perfect analogy. See, advertised speeds are usually based on ideal conditions.
Okay.
Like a perfect highway with no traffic. But the reality is there can be tons of bottlenecks along the way.
Right, like rush hour for my data.
Exactly. Network congestion is a huge factor. If
Yeah.
too many people are trying to access the same resources at the same time, things can slow down for everyone.
And I imagine there could be other problems, too, like bad hardware.
Oh, absolutely. Just like a pothole can slow down traffic, problems with routers or servers or other ports of that infrastructure can impact your speed.
Right.
And then you also have more malicious disruptions, like denial of service attacks.
Right. Those are scary.
Yeah, these attacks can bring down entire websites by flooding a server with traffic to make it inaccessible.
So it's kind of like someone's intentionally creating a traffic jam.
Exactly.
Okay. So with all those potential roadblocks, it makes sense why our internet speeds aren't always what we expect.
Yeah.
But where do VPNs fit into all of this? How could they possibly help with speed when they're basically adding another stop along the way?
Right. It is a little counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But to understand that, we need to first understand what a VPN even does.
Okay.
Think of it like a secret tunnel for your data.
Ooh, I like that. Like a shortcut through the mountains
Yeah.
that bypasses the main highway.
Exactly. A VPN creates this encrypted connection between your device and a server, operated by the VPN provider. So it's like you're sending your car through this tunnel. Nobody can see what's inside.
Right.
And it takes a different route than the usual traffic.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this could impact speed, maybe positively or negatively. But before we get too deep into that, maybe we should talk about why people even use VPNs in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. While speed can be a factor, the main benefits are privacy and security.
Right.
When your traffic's encrypted and going through this VPN server, it's way harder for snoopers to track you.
Especially important on public Wi-Fi,
Right.
where anyone could be trying to steal your data.
Exactly. A VPN is basically like a shield for your data,
Yeah.
protecting it from prying eyes.
Good to know.
And VPNs can also let you bypass those geographic restrictions on content.
Oh, right. So if I'm traveling and I want to access streaming services from home, a VPN can do that.
Exactly. By connecting to a VPN server in your home country, you basically trick websites into thinking you're still there.
That's pretty cool. It's like teleporting your internet connection.
Exactly.
Okay, so VPNs sound pretty awesome. But let's get back to that original question. Can they actually make my internet faster?
So the answer is sometimes yes.
Wow.
It's not as simple as VPNs always slowing you down. There are definitely cases where they can improve your speed.
Okay, I'm listening. Tell me more about those scenarios.
All right. One of the most common ways a VPN can speed things up is by getting around something called ISP throttling.
ISP throttling, what is that?
Well, imagine you're driving along that internet highway, and your ISP suddenly decides to lower the speed limit just for you.
What?
That's throttling. Sometimes ISPs will slow down certain types of traffic, like streaming or downloading large files.
Why would they do that?
It can be frustrating, I know. They might do it for a few reasons, like trying to manage congestion during peak hours, or even discourage people from doing things that use a lot of bandwidth.
So they're kind of playing traffic cop with my data. That's
Yeah.
kind of messed up.
It can feel that way, but this is where a VPN can really help. Remember that encrypted tunnel we talked about? When you're using a VPN, your ISP can't see what's going through that tunnel.
Okay.
They just see generic data.
So they can't throttle based on what I'm doing.
Exactly. It masks your activity, so they can't tell if you're streaming or gaming or whatever. They just see data and have to treat it all the same.
So if my ISP is throttling my Netflix,
Yeah.
a VPN could potentially make it faster.
It's definitely possible. If the throttling was the bottleneck, the VPN could help you bypass that limit, and you might get speeds closer to your actual connection speed.
Wow. That's like putting a disguise on my data, so it can slip past the ISP's radar.
Exactly. There's another situation where a VPN might help, and it has to do with something called peering agreements.
Peering agreements.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Think of them like deals between different airlines. You know, to get you to your final destination, airlines need to work together to allow for smooth transfers between flights.
Right.
So peering agreements are how different ISPs work together to route internet traffic across their networks. They let data move smoothly between different parts of the internet. But sometimes, an ISP might have a bad peering agreement with certain networks.
Okay, so it's like an airline having a bad deal with another airline, and your connecting flight gets delayed because of it.
Exactly. For internet traffic, this means your data might have to take a much longer route because the ISPs involved don't have good connections between their networks.
So my data's stuck taking the scenic route, even if there's a faster way.
Exactly. And this is another place where a VPN might be able to help.
Okay.
Since your traffic is going through the VPN's network,
Right.
you're basically bypassing your ISP's peering agreements.
So it's like the VPN is my travel agent, finding a more direct flight for my data.
Exactly. If that VPN provider has better peering agreements, you could see a speed improvement.
This is blowing my mind. I always thought VPNs would just slow things down.
I know, it's counterintuitive, but it's all about understanding how complex the internet is and how VPNs can work around those complexities sometimes.
So far, I'm impressed. But I have a feeling there's more to the story. I'm guessing there are also times when a VPN can slow down your connection.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. While they can be speed heroes sometimes, they can also be the culprit behind slowdowns in other cases.
Okay, let's talk about that darker side of VPN speeds. What makes them slow things down?
All right, let's get into it. You know, even with those secret tunnels and travel agent skills, VPNs aren't totally immune to the laws of physics and network congestion.
Right, so they're not a magic fix for all our internet problems.
Exactly. Let's talk about some of those potential speed bumps you mentioned. Remember how a VPN routes your traffic through a server operated by the VPN provider?
Yeah.
Well, that extra step can sometimes add latency.
Latency. That's the delay between, like, when you click a link and when you actually see something happen.
Exactly. Think of it like sending a physical letter. If you add an extra stop along the way, it's naturally going to take longer to arrive. The same principle applies to data traveling across the internet.
Right. So the farther my data has to travel to reach the VPN server, the longer it's going to take.
Exactly. That's why it's really important to choose a VPN provider that has a large and diverse server network.
Okay.
The more server locations they have, the better chance you have of finding one that's close to you.
So it's like having a bunch of shortcuts all over the world.
Precisely. A well-placed server can actually reduce the overall distance your data has to travel.
Right. So that could potentially lead to faster speeds.
Exactly.
Okay, so distance and server location matter. What else can cause those VPN slowdowns?
Well, even with a nearby server, you can still run into another problem: VPN server congestion.
Okay.
Imagine that VPN server as a busy intersection. If too many users are trying to squeeze through that intersection at the same time, things are going to slow down for everybody.
Right. So even if a server is physically close to me, if it's overloaded, my connection will still suffer.
Exactly. It's like trying to join a Zoom meeting with 1,000 other people. Things are bound to get a little laggy.
So choosing a VPN provider with a robust server network is super important,
Absolutely.
so we can avoid those bottlenecks. Are there any other factors that we should be thinking about?
Well, we can't forget about the encryption process itself.
Right.
Encryption is essential for security, but it does add a little bit of overhead.
Overhead.
Yeah, basically, encrypting and decrypting your data takes a tiny bit of extra time and processing power. It's like adding an extra layer of packaging to a shipment. It adds a bit of weight and slows things down ever so slightly.
So we're getting that added security, but it comes at a small cost in terms of speed.
Exactly. Think of it like wearing a seatbelt in a car. Might take a second to buckle up, but it's worth it for the added protection.
Absolutely. So knowing all of this, are there any practical tips for minimizing that potential speed hit? Besides choosing a provider with a big server network, of course.
Definitely. One important tip is to experiment with different VPN protocols.
VPN protocols.
Yeah. They sound pretty technical, but you don't really need to be a tech expert to understand the basics. Basically, there are different ways of sending your data through that encrypted tunnel. And some protocols, like WireGuard or IKV2, are designed for speed.
Okay.
So it's like choosing the express lane at the grocery store.
Nice.
They're streamlined, built for speed.
Got it. So if I want to prioritize speed, I should look for a VPN that supports WireGuard or IKV2.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. A lot of the good providers offer these protocols as options, and don't underestimate the power of good old-fashioned troubleshooting either.
Troubleshooting, you mean like restarting my router and things like that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes switching to a different server, restarting your device can make a big difference.
Sometimes the simple fixes are the best fixes. Okay, so we've covered a lot here. Seems like the impact of a VPN on internet speed really depends on a bunch of different things,
It's a complex interplay of variables, for sure.
from server location to the protocols being used.
But ultimately, the key takeaway is that it's all about weighing that speed trade-off against the privacy and security benefits of a VPN.
Right, because those benefits are huge.
Yeah.
I mean, a VPN can protect your data from snoopers, especially on public Wi-Fi, and it can help you access content that might be restricted in your region.
Absolutely. It's about finding the right balance for your own needs.
Right. Speaking of needs, I know a lot of people are probably wondering which VPN providers offer the best speeds. We've got some articles here that compare different services, so let's get into that data.
Sure. Based on the research, NordVPN consistently ranks pretty high in terms of speed and performance.
Okay.
They have a massive server network and offer that WireGuard protocol we talked about.
NordVPN. I've heard of them. They're a big name. What about some other providers?
ExpressVPN is another good option, known for its speeds.
Okay.
They have a large server network and a really user-friendly interface.
And I've also heard good things about Surfshark. They're known for their unlimited simultaneous connections, which is great for families.
Yes. Surfshark is a great option if you have a lot of devices to protect. They generally offer good speeds, though maybe not quite as consistently fast as Nord or Express in all locations.
That's great info. But it's important to remember that the best VPN for you will depend on your own needs and priorities. So do your research.
Yeah,
Compare different providers to find the best fit.
definitely. And don't be afraid to take advantage of those free trials and money-back guarantees to test them out.
Great advice. So we've explored the good, the bad, and the sometimes surprisingly speedy world of VPNs. What are your final thoughts?
You know, I think it's safe to say that the relationship between VPNs and internet speed is more complicated than a lot of people think.
It's definitely not as simple as VPNs always slowing things down,
Right. We've seen that they can actually improve your speeds in some situations.
especially when it comes to bypassing ISP throttling or those bad peering agreements.
Exactly. But we've also learned that they can introduce their own slowdowns if you're not careful.
Like choosing the right provider and server location.
Exactly. It's all about making informed choices to get the best experience.
Well said. We hope this deep dive has given you the knowledge you need to navigate the world of VPNs and internet speed. We've covered a lot today, from what internet speed even means to how a VPN can affect your connection.
It's been a wild ride through those digital tunnels and highways.
It has. But before we go, I want to go back to that original question. Can a VPN really make your internet faster?
The million-dollar question. And I think the answer is, it depends.
Yeah, it's not a simple yes or no.
Right.
There are just so many factors involved,
Exactly.
like how much your ISP is throttling you, or the
Okay.
peering agreements they have,
Right.
even which server you choose.
And don't forget the main reason people use VPNs in the first place.
Right. Privacy and security.
Those are really important in this day and age.
Absolutely. A VPN is like a bodyguard for your data, especially on public Wi-Fi.
Exactly.
So while speed is something to think about,
Yeah.
those privacy and security benefits are huge.
Couldn't agree more.
So for our listeners out there, when should you use a VPN? And when is a direct connection better?
That's the question, isn't it? And again, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It
Yeah.
comes down to your own needs and what you're prioritizing.
If you're really worried about privacy, especially on public Wi-Fi or when you're dealing with sensitive info, then a VPN is a must-have.
Yeah.
It's like a digital invisibility cloak.
And if you think your ISP is throttling you, Or their peering agreements are slowing you down. A VPN might help you get faster speeds.
But if you're mainly focused on speed,
Hmm.
like for gaming or downloading large files, you got to be careful to pick a VPN with a good server network.
Yeah.
And protocols that are optimized for speed,
Right.
you might want to try out different VPNs, or even just use a direct connection when speed is critical.
Good advice.
I think the big takeaway here is that knowledge is power. The more you know about how VPNs work and the things that affect your internet speed, the better choices you can make. It's all about finding that balance between speed, security, and convenience. Well, folks, that's about it for this deep dive. We hope you learned something about VPNs and internet speed today.
We had fun exploring this with you.
And a huge thank you to all of you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the AnzenGuard podcast and leave us a comment or rating. We love hearing from you.
And if you have any questions you want us to answer, send them our way.
We're always up for a challenge. I'm Michael Reynolds,
And I'm Laura Wilson.
signing off for now. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe online.